Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series, Saturday Morning Cartoons, where I took a look at some of my favorite licensed cartoon-based games where they had episodes on Saturday mornings. If you didn't grow up with Saturday morning cartoons, you missed out. And I did tell you guys when we did Turtles in Time that it was very likely you'd be seeing TMNT, the arcade game from Konami, and here we are, because this is where the Turtles really got their start. Sure, there were some NES games, but who has time to swim through coral that electrifies you and you die over and over again? Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But this game is as good today as it was when it first came out, and I remember first seeing this arcade cabinet in arcades at the Dream Machine where I grew up in Vermont. I love the Turtles, I fell in love with this game, and I've been playing it ever since. And for a while, there wasn't a great arcade port as a kid, but of course that has been solved now, and I actually don't own a PCB for this game. But this is just nostalgia to a T, although I will say, as far as how it's aged, it is a very hard game and in some instances could be considered cheap. Konami wanted your lunch money with this title. They wanted kids to keep pumping in quarters till they saw the end, and it is going to definitely cost you. It doesn't bring you out back and mug you for the money in your wallet, but it gets relatively close. But of course, via emulation or any other port you want to play, quarters aren't as important, so it's not going to cost us anything to play this. But I just love how it looks, how it plays, how it sounds. This is nostalgia drip to the brain from the original cartoon. And I love they even write Toidles there, not Turtles, just adhering to how the speech patterns worked in the original show as well. And all of the graphical effects, the smoke billowing on the ceiling, those fire and flame effects in the front for sprite work look spectacular, especially when you consider this game is not a mid-90s game whatsoever. This was extremely impressive when it came out in arcades, and I still think the graphical style looks great today. Shredder kidnaps April Ryan, and we're on the move. And just like the recent game Shredder's Revenge that keeps a lot of the same mechanics, this is where they got their start. Hitting parking meters and knocking them into Foot Clan soldiers started here. Falling into holes over and over again started here. Hitting those fire hydrants and releasing the caps so you can also attack enemies definitely still started here as well. And so much of what we would get in Turtles games moving forward originates from this one title. I love that Shredder's in the TV and that electronics store as well. Definitely some misspellings in this game. They got Toidles right, but they couldn't get electronics right. This game gives me slight Streets of Rage vibe as well. When you kind of go down here in the first level on the street level, it quite closely mirrors that game. It's just a fun observation. Like I said, in the cheat factor, sometimes billboards are just going to fall off the wall and damage you, and there's going to be Foot Clan soldiers behind it as well. If you are pumping quarters into this game, definitely weigh yourself down with them, because it's going to take a lot. But the boss fights, again, are awesome. Seeing these characters from the cartoon come to life in this arcade game is just so much fun. As a kid, this felt like magic because no home console looked like this. This looked like the cartoon, except you could control it. And of course, it's a Turtles game, so we have to go down into the sewers, and they chose purple water for that. I'm not sure what they got in the sewers here, but it's probably not very healthy to be walking around in. At least it's not too deep though. But I love this game. Each level feels different and unique, and the graphical style is always changing. We went from an office building with a burning room to the streets of New York to the sewers. You're constantly getting new things to look at, and all these different pipes works here. Again, in the cheat factor though, that gate is just going to mess with you time and time again. As a kid, I could not get around that damn thing without taking a hit. But the combat is really good. Now, Turtles in Time is better, and this game has ever so slightly what I refer to as the issue where if you're not perfectly lined up with an enemy, you're not actually going to strike them, especially when you're doing aerial kicks like this. You feel like you're hitting the enemy, but for some reason you don't always make contact. So I would say that's why I also consider Turtles in Time the better game of the two. But this game has an amazing soundtrack, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll come back and talk more about the history of the Turtles. Hearing the theme song in the 16-bit Konami rendition is such a classic experience. Now, if there's another strike I will give against this game, it is a small one, but they do like to recycle bosses. I assume we fought both Bebop and Rocksteady independently, but now Konami's going to make you face both of them, and because they kind of spread out on screen and attack you from different sides, it's going to be twice as hard to defeat them both. It's just another moment where it's just a little bit, maybe, could you have given me a couple extra bosses in the game, but that's usually a complaint with almost all beat 'em up, so we have to deal with what we're given. But when the turtle van rolls in here, that is just such a classic, iconic moment. I had that as an actual like Hot Wheels car, maybe like a little bigger, but April O'Neil is happy, and so are the turtles. There's a little bit of a weirdness going on there for sure. But just like in Turtles in Time, we get another hoverboard section. This is more of like a rocket skateboard than it is a surfboard, but it's still a lot of fun, and you get to use a little bit more of the aerial combat. Up until this point, we haven't touched on much, and those shadows at the bottom there kind of remind me of something, so maybe don't leave me a comment if you realize it as well, but I've always thought that. Maybe it's just where my mind is, the sewer, just like the turtles are. But I love that they change things up ever so slightly, because a lot of times in beat-em-ups, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, by the end of the game I actually start to get a little bit bored with the beat-em-up mechanic and wish I had something else to do. But in this game, you get this section. Sure, it's still a beat-em-up, but it controls differently enough where it feels unique. And we take that turtle van right over the bridge there, and Splinter is being carried away by those robots. It's just so much fun to watch all these characters, you know, be interactive. And Konami was on a hot streak in this period in time. They had the Turtles, they had the Simpsons arcade game. They were a massive maker of amazing beat-em-ups in the late 80s to early to mid 90s. Their output rivaled Sega and Capcom, and I may say that Konami did the best as far as the beat-em-up genre in arcades is concerned. Leave me a comment down below and tell me, who do you think was the best beat-em-up developer of the era? Because honestly, around this time we were getting spoiled with beat-em-ups, both in home consoles and in arcades. But again, this just feels like an interactive version of the cartoon, because that's technically what it is. But all of the enemies, all of the combat, just felt like the cartoon come to life in arcades. And I don't remember it being on the arcade floor for that long, but of course my memory of that time period is very fuzzy. But as we're fighting the boss here with Splinter tied up there, we need to rescue him, and it's just so much fun, these little cutscenes. But I told you that I would give you a little bit more taste of the soundtrack, because it is good. And now that Splinter is safe and we can move on and he's going to thank his turtles, go ahead and listen for like another 30 seconds. It's another great track, and I'll come back and talk more about this arcade game. A lot of the music gets more intense as we're getting towards the later part of the game, but again, I'm going to reference it every single time. You can't have a beat 'em up if you don't have an elevator. Now this is a 45-degree elevator, but it doesn't have stairs, so therefore it's not an escalator, so it does adhere to the bylaws of the beat 'em up genre, and that is important. But this isn't a long game. You can play from start to finish in like 20 some odd minutes, and now we have to fight Krang, who is still my favorite villain in the entire Turtles franchise. Shredder's fine, but Krang just has something that he does not. But again, it is a cheap fight. He's going to basically have a counter for every single one of your attacks, no matter what you do. And of course, if you played this game for hundreds of hours, there probably is some pattern you can get him in to make him basically pointless, but I just haven't done that. So if there is, leave me a link down below to a video and show me what I am missing out on. But I remember as a kid, just being able to interactively fight someone like Krang in a video game was a dream come true, because the Turtles have always been something I enjoyed. Obviously, I've gotten a lot older, and I don't base my entire life around cartoons anymore, but as a kid, I definitely based at least a year of my life, probably two, around being a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. And Shredder and his doppelganger here, Shredderganger, if that isn't even a word, is going to fight you. And when his helmet pops off, that always seems really weird to me. Just seeing Shredder without that iconic helmet, it would be like seeing Dr. Claw's face in Inspector Gadget. It just seems like something you shouldn't be able to see in a Turtles game or otherwise, but that's just me. But honestly, like I said earlier, this is an iconic game. This is one of the best arcade games of all time. This is going to go down in the history books as something that anyone who likes beat 'em ups or arcade games is definitely going to play. But honestly, if you want to buy a PCB for this, it's not the worst price. You're looking at like $400 to $500, and that's because this game was so incredibly popular. Konami printed so many of these boards, they're still relatively easy to find. But this is just nostalgia straight to the vein for me. I love the Turtles growing up. I love the recent Shredder's Revenge game, but this is basically where my love for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games got started, and that's why it's on Saturday morning cartoons. I'll have videos throughout the week, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.